The morning Vincent Vale found his pastures empty. He felt something break inside his chest that had nothing to do with the financial ruin staring him in the face. He stood at the fence line with his hands gripping the weathered wood so hard his knuckles went white, staring at the trampled grass and scattered feed where 40 head of cattle should have been grazing. The raiders had come in the night, silent as ghosts, and taken everything he had spent 5 years building since he had left the army, and tried to make an honest living on this frontier land. His neighbor Garrett rode up an hour later, face grim beneath his wide-brimmed hat. Saw the tracks heading north into the Badlands. Orc raiding party looks like, maybe 8 or 10 of them based on the boot prints. I am sorry, Vincent. Those cattle are as good as gone. No one goes into orc territory and comes back, not for livestock anyway. Vincent said nothing. He just kept staring at the empty field, doing calculations in his head that all came out the same way. Without those cattle, he could not pay his loans. Without paying his loans, he would lose the farm. He would lose everything. Again. Come stay with us tonight, Garrett offered, but Vincent shook his head. I will be fine. Thank you for checking on me. After Garrett left, Vincent went inside his small farmhouse and sat at the table, head in his hands. He had been a soldier for 10 years, seen combat in the border wars, earned medals and commendations. But after his company had been ambushed and half his men killed in a single bloody afternoon, he had bought his discharge and come out here to find peace. The nightmares still woke him most nights, but working the land, tending the cattle, watching things grow instead of watching men die, it had been helping. Slowly. Now even that was being taken from him. He did not sleep that night. He sat on his porch with his rifle across his knees, watching the northern horizon where the Badlands began, that stretch of rocky hills and scrub forest where the orc clans made their camps. Everyone knew you did not go there. Humans who ventured into orc territory did not come back. But his cattle were there. His future was there. By dawn he had almost convinced himself to ride north alone, to at least die trying. It was a stupid thought, a suicidal thought, but it kept circling his mind anyway. That was when he heard them. The lowing of cattle, distant but unmistakable. Vincent stood so fast his chair clattered backwards. The sound was coming from the north road, from the direction of the Badlands. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the gate, heart hammering, not letting himself hope because hope was dangerous. The cattle came first, 40 head of them moving in a nervous cluster down the dirt road toward his property. They looked unharmed, just spooked. And behind them, driving them with a long staff and steady commands, was an orc. Vincent raised his rifle on instinct, sighting down the barrel at the massive figure. She was tall, easily 6.5 feet, with broad shoulders and arms corded with muscle. Her skin was a deep forest green, and 2 small tusks curved up from her lower jaw. She wore leather armor that had seen hard use, and a sword hung at her hip. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and her pointed ears twitched as she guided the cattle. She saw him with the rifle and stopped. The cattle kept moving, instinct taking them toward the familiar pasture. The orc woman raised her empty hands slowly, the staff held horizontal to show she meant no threat. "These are yours," she called. Her voice was deep and clear, with an accent that turned her words slightly rough. "I brought them back." Vincent kept the rifle steady, mind racing. This was impossible. Orcs did not return stolen property. Orcs raided and killed and burned. That was what everyone knew. That was what he had been taught in the army. "Why?" he shouted back. "Because they were stolen from you. Orcs did the stealing. I know. That is why I brought them back." She took a step forward and Vincent's finger tightened on the trigger. "Stay where you are." The orc woman stopped again. Up close now, with better light, Vincent could see she had scars, several of them, including one that ran from her temple to her jaw. But her eyes were not cruel. They were dark amber, and they looked tired. "I am not here to fight you, human. I am here to return what my brother took. He and his raiding party stole your cattle 2 nights ago. I followed them, challenged him for the theft, and when he would not return what he had taken, I fought him and his warriors. I won. The cattle are yours. I am returning them." She paused. "I will leave now if you wish. I just wanted to see them safely back to their owner." Vincent stared at her. The cattle were indeed moving into his pasture now, heading for the water trough like they had never left. He could see all 40 head from this vantage point. She had brought them all back, every single one. "You fought your own people," Vincent said slowly, lowering the rifle slightly. "For my cattle." "For what was right," the orc woman corrected. "My brother Kargath has been raiding human settlements for months. He says it is payment for old wrongs, for land taken and kin killed. But you did not kill anyone. You are a farmer. Raiding you makes us nothing but thieves and murderers. When I told him this, he challenged me. So I beat him in front of his warriors and took the cattle." "Why do you care?" The question came out harsher than Vincent intended, but nothing about this situation made sense. The orc woman's expression hardened. "Because I am tired of the killing. Because I am tired of being what humans expect us to be. Because maybe if I do the right thing, even once, it will matter." She lowered her hands. "Your cattle are returned. I will go now." She turned to leave, and Vincent felt something twist in his gut. She had risked her life, fought her own clan, to return his livelihood. She had done what no one, orc or human, would have expected. And he was letting her walk away without even a word of thanks because of what she was. "Wait," he called. The orc woman stopped but did not turn around. Vincent set his rifle against the fence post and walked toward her, hands visible and empty. She turned slowly, watching him with wary eyes. "I am sorry," Vincent said when he was close enough to speak without shouting. "You did something incredibly brave, and I met you with a rifle. Thank you for bringing back my cattle. You saved my farm. You saved my life in a way." The orc woman blinked, and for a moment she looked very young despite her scars. "You are thanking me?" "Yes. What is your name?" She hesitated. "Gorra. Gorra of the Ironhide clan, or I was. I am not certain I still am after what I did." "Vincent Vale," he said, and offered his hand. Gorra stared at his hand like it was a snake. "You would touch me. Humans do not touch orcs except in battle." "Seems like a poor way to thank someone who just saved everything I own." Slowly, carefully, Gorra reached out and clasped his hand. Her grip was strong and her palm was calloused from weapon work. The handshake lasted only a moment, but Vincent saw something shift in her expression, some wall lowering just slightly. "When was the last time you ate?" Vincent asked. "That is not your concern. You drove 40 cattle through rough country for 2 days straight, I am guessing. That takes energy. Come inside. Let me give you a meal at least." Gorra shook her head. "I should not stay. If anyone saw me here, it would bring you trouble." "Then we will be quick. Please. It is the least I can do." For a long moment, Gorra just looked at him, searching his face for something. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she finally nodded. "1 meal. Then I go." Vincent led her to the house, very aware of how she kept her hand near her sword hilt, how her eyes scanned everything for threats. She moved like a soldier. He recognized it because he did the same thing, even now. Inside, he gestured to the table. "Sit. I will make something fast." Gorra sat gingerly, like the chair might collapse under her weight. Vincent set to work, pulling out bread, cheese, dried meat, and the last of his butter. It was simple fare but filling. He poured water from the pitcher and brought everything to the table. Gorra stared at the food. "This is too much. Eat, please." She ate slowly at first, like she expected it to be snatched away. Then hunger took over and she ate with the efficient focus of someone who had gone too long without food. Vincent sat across from her with his own portion, watching her between bites. "This brother you fought," Vincent said carefully. "Will he come after you?" Gorra swallowed and took a drink of water. "Probably. I shamed him in front of his warriors. Kargath does not forgive shame, but he will not come here. He knows that if he does, I will kill him. I made that clear." "Where will you go?" she shrugged. "Into the wilds. There are places in the deep forest where even orcs rarely go. I will survive. Alone. That is what happens when you break from your clan. I knew the price." Vincent set down his bread. "You gave up your home, your family, everything to return my cattle." "I gave up my place with thieves and raiders," Gorra corrected. "The Ironhide clan has been my family since I was born, but they are not who they were. Or maybe they are exactly who they always were, and I was too young to see it clearly. Either way, I could not stay and watch them become monsters." That took courage. Gorra met his eyes. "Or foolishness. Time will tell which." They finished the meal in silence. When Gorra stood to leave, Vincent found himself not wanting her to go. It was insane. She was an orc. She was dangerous. She was everything he had been taught to fear. But she had also saved him, and she had given up everything to do what was right, and there was something in her tired eyes that he recognized from his own reflection. "You could stay," Vincent said before he could stop himself. Gorra went very still. "What? Stay? Work the farm? You are strong, you know how to fight, and you clearly have principles. I could use help and you need a place. It would be practical. No human would accept an orc living on their land. It is my land. I will accept it. Vincent." The sound of his name in her rough voice was strange and compelling. "You do not know what you are offering. The other humans will shun you. They will call you an orc lover. They will make your life miserable." "My life is already pretty miserable," Vincent said with a slight smile. "At least this way I would get help with the cattle." Gorra shook her head, but Vincent could see she was tempted. "Why would you do this?" "Because you did the right thing when it cost you everything. That is rare. And because I understand what it is like to not fit with your own people anymore." He took a breath. "I was a soldier. After I got out, I could not be around other veterans. They wanted to talk about glory and honor, and I just kept seeing the blood. I came out here to be alone because I could not be around people who did not understand. But maybe I do not need to be completely alone." Gorra was quiet for a long time. Finally she said, "1 month. I will stay for 1 month and help you. Then I go. That way you can repay your debt to me and I can have food and shelter while I plan my next steps. Nothing more." Vincent knew he should feel relieved at the limits she was setting, but instead he felt disappointed. Still, he nodded. 1 month. They shook hands again, and this time Gorra's grip was firmer, more certain. The first few days were awkward. Vincent cleared out his small barn and made space for Gorra to sleep. She refused to stay in the house, saying it would be improper. She worked from before dawn until after dusk, tending the cattle, repairing fences, hauling water, chopping wood. Her strength was incredible. Tasks that took Vincent an hour she completed in 20 minutes. But she barely spoke, and she avoided him except when work required coordination. On the 4th day, Garrett came by to check on Vincent. He saw Gorra in the far pasture and his face went white. "Vincent, what in all the hells is an orc doing on your land? Working. She is helping me with the farm. Are you insane? That is an orc. They are dangerous. They are killers. She is the one who brought my cattle back. Her name is Gorra and she is staying for a while." Garrett sputtered. "You cannot be serious. When people find out, when they hear you are harboring an orc, they will ride you out of the valley. They will burn your farm. Then I guess I will deal with that when it happens. Vincent, please think about this." I know you have been through a lot, and I know you are grateful she returned your herd, but this is madness. Humans and orcs do not live together. It is not natural." Vincent felt his temper flare. She gave up her entire clan to do the right thing. She fought her own brother. She saved my livelihood, and you want me to throw her out because of what she is? That seems pretty unnatural to me. Garrett stared at him like he was a stranger. "I came here as your friend. I am warning you. This will not end well." "Noted. Anything else?" Garrett shook his head and rode away. Vincent watched him go and felt a door close somewhere. Gorra had been right. The other humans would not accept this, but he was tired of doing what other people expected. He had spent 10 years as a soldier following orders that got good men killed. He was done living by other people's rules. That night, Vincent brought dinner out to the barn where Gorra was sharpening her sword. She looked up when he entered, surprise flickering across her face. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, setting down the plate of stew and bread. "You do not need to feed me separately. I can eat after you." "I know, I wanted to." Gorra set down her whetstone and accepted the food. They ate in the comfortable quiet of the barn, with the sounds of the cattle settling down for the night around them. "Your friend came by today," Gorra said after a while. "I know, he thinks I am crazy." He is probably right. But there was something almost like a smile on her face. "You do not get to decide if I am crazy. You barely talk to me." Gorra looked down at her bowl. "I am not good at talking. In my clan, I was always too serious, too focused. I did not fit with the other warriors." "What did you do before all this?" "I was a scout. I tracked game, mapped trails, watched the borders. I was good at being alone." She paused. "I thought I wanted to be alone, but maybe I was just waiting for a reason to belong somewhere." Vincent felt his chest tighten. "I understand that." They talked longer that night than they had since Gorra arrived. She told him about growing up in the Ironhide clan, about her mother who had died when Gorra was young, about her brother Kargath who had been her closest companion until their father died and Kargath became clan leader. Vincent told her about the war, about the ambush, about the guilt that still woke him in the dark hours. "You blame yourself," Gorra said. "It was not a question. I was their sergeant. It was my job to keep them safe." "And what about the enemy who ambushed you? Do they carry no blame?" Vincent had no answer for that. They sat in silence for a while, and then Gorra said quietly, "My father taught me that honor means doing what is right even when it costs you. I thought I understood. But doing the right thing cost me my home, my clan, my entire life. Some days I wonder if it was worth it." "Was it?" Vincent asked. Gorra looked at him, really looked at him, and something passed between them. "Yes, it was, because otherwise I would be like my brother, taking what I wanted and calling it justice. After that night, things changed." Gorra still worked from dawn to dusk, but she ate dinner with Vincent at the house. They talked while they worked, about the cattle and the weather, and slowly, gradually, about themselves. Vincent learned that Gorra loved thunderstorms and hated sweet things. That she could track a rabbit through 3 miles of forest, but could not cook anything more complicated than meat on a stick. That she had a dry sense of humor that caught him off guard and made him laugh. Gorra learned that Vincent had wanted to be a teacher before the war, that he still had nightmares about the men he had lost, that he was better at caring for animals than people because animals did not judge him. She learned that he was patient and kind, and that he looked at her like she was a person, not a monster. The month was half over when the trouble came. Vincent was in town buying supplies when he overheard 2 men talking at the general store. "Heard Vale has an orc living on his property. A female, can you imagine? Probably using her as slave labor, or worse. You know what they say about men who go native." Vincent set down his purchases with more force than necessary. Both men turned to look at him. "You have something to say it to my face," Vincent said quietly. The larger of the two men, a farmer named Dutch, sneered. What is there to say, Vale? Everyone knows you are keeping an orc out at your place. It is disgusting. It is unnatural. She has a name. It is Gorra. She is working my farm because she saved my entire herd. And what I do on my own property is my business. It is everyone's business when you bring a monster into our valley, the other man said. Vincent felt his hands curl into fists. He had not hit anyone since the war, but the urge was there. Instead he said, Gorra has more honor than either of you. She gave up everything to do what was right. What have you done lately besides gossip and judge? He left without his supplies, too angry to stay. When he got back to the farm, Gorra was waiting by the gate. She took one look at his face and frowned. What happened? He told her. She listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she just nodded slowly. I should leave. This is exactly what I said would happen. No. The word came out more forcefully than Vincent intended. You are not leaving because some ignorant men do not like you. You have done nothing wrong. I am an orc, Vincent. That is enough for most humans. Then most humans are fools. He stepped closer. You belong here. For whatever time you choose to stay, you belong here. Do not let anyone tell you different. Gorra looked at him with those amber eyes, and Vincent saw something crack in her composure. You do not know what it means that you say that. Then tell me. My whole life I have been told what I am. Orc, warrior, outsider. My own clan called me strange because I cared about honor over strength. And humans, they just see a monster. But you see me. Gorra, just me. Her voice wavered slightly. That is a gift I did not know I needed. Vincent wanted to reach for her to close the distance between them, but he was afraid of pushing too far. You are not a monster. You are brave and principled, and you work harder than anyone I have ever met. The people in town are wrong about you. And what are you right about? That you should stay. Not for a month. For as long as you want. Because this farm is better with you on it, and my life is better with you in it. The words hung between them, too honest and too raw. Gorra stared at him, and Vincent saw the exact moment she understood what he was really saying. Her eyes went wide. Vincent, you cannot mean that. Why not? Because I am an orc and you are human, and the world does not allow for what you are suggesting. I am not suggesting anything except that you stay. The rest we figure out as we go. Gorra shook her head, but she was smiling now, a small tentative thing. You are a fool, probably. Is that a yes? It is a maybe. Ask me again at the end of the month, Vincent grinned. Fair enough. But the trouble in town was not over. A week later, a group of 5 men rode up to Vincent's property just after sunset. Vincent recognized Dutch and Garrett, along with 3 others from neighboring farms. They all carried rifles. Vincent met them at the gate. Gentlemen, something I can help you with, Dutch spoke, his voice hard. We are here to give you a choice, Vale. Send the orc away tonight or we run her off ourselves. We are not having that thing living among decent folk. Gorra is not going anywhere. Then you are choosing her over your own kind, Garrett asked. He looked sad rather than angry. Vincent, please do not do this. We do not want to hurt you, but we cannot let this stand. Vincent glanced back toward the barn. Gorra was there. He could see her silhouette in the doorway, could see her hand on her sword hilt. You are not running her off. And if you try, you will have to go through me. There are 5 of us, one of the other men said, and we are all armed. Do not be stupid. No, there are 6 of us, Gorra called, walking forward into the fading light. And I was a warrior before Vincent Vale ever picked up a rifle. You want to threaten him, you threaten me first. Dutch raised his rifle. Stay back, orc. Everything happened very fast. Gorra drew her sword and charged, but Vincent was already moving, stepping between her and the guns. Stop, all of you, just stop. Garrett looked stricken. Vincent, move. No, if you want to shoot her, you shoot me first, but I am not moving. The standoff lasted a small eternity. Finally, Dutch lowered his rifle with a curse. You are a damned fool, Vale. When this ends badly, and it will, do not come crying to us. The 5 men rode away. Vincent stood there breathing hard, adrenaline still flooding his system. Gorra grabbed his arm and spun him around. What were you thinking? They could have killed you. They could have killed you. I am a warrior. I can handle myself. You are an idiot human who just stepped in front of 5 rifles for someone you barely know. I know you well enough to know I would rather die than watch them hurt you. Gorra froze. Her grip on his arm loosened. Vincent, you cannot say things like that. Why not? It is true. Because it makes this so much harder. Because it makes me want things I cannot have. Vincent's heart was hammering, but not from fear now. What things? Gorra let go of his arm and stepped back. You know what things? Do not make me say it. I want to hear it. Vincent. His name was almost a plea. I am an orc. You are human. Even if we wanted this, even if we chose each other, the world would tear us apart. Your neighbors already tried to run me off. What happens when they come back with more men? What happens when my brother finds out where I am? What happens when we realize this was all just loneliness and gratitude, and we made a terrible mistake? Or what happens if it is not a mistake? Vincent took a step toward her. What happens if this is real? What if I have spent every day of the last 2 weeks falling for you, and not knowing how to tell you? What if you are the bravest, most remarkable person I have ever met, and the fact that you are an orc just makes you more beautiful because it means you fight twice as hard for everything? Gorra was breathing fast, her amber eyes locked on his face. You do not mean that. I have never meant anything more in my life. This is insane. I know. Everyone will hate us. I know. I have tusks and green skin, and I could accidentally break you if I am not careful. Vincent laughed, a real, honest laugh that felt like sunlight. I am a trained soldier with war trauma and nightmares. I think we are both taking risks here. Gorra made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You are serious. Completely. Vincent, I have been alone my entire life. I do not know how to be someone's. I do not even know what word to use. How about just Gorra? You do not have to be anything except yourself, and I will just be Vincent, and we will see where that takes us. Gorra closed the distance between them in one long stride. She reached up and cupped his face with both hands, careful of her strength. If I do this, if I let myself want this, I will not be able to walk away. I will fight for you against anyone. My brother, your neighbors, the whole world if I have to. Because orcs, we do not love easily, but when we do, it is forever. Vincent covered her hands with his own. I am not asking you to walk away. I am asking you to stay. Gorra kissed him. It was awkward at first, navigating the tusks, but then they found the right angle and it was perfect. She tasted like the earth after rain, and her skin was warm under his palms. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Gorra rested her forehead against his. This is the most foolish thing I have ever done, she whispered. Same, want to keep being foolish together? Yes. They stood there in the twilight, holding each other, and Vincent felt something settle in his chest that had been loose and rattling since the war. He was home. Not the farm, not the land, but this, her, them. The next morning Vincent woke to find Gorra already up and working. He made breakfast for both of them, and they ate at the small table, knees touching underneath. It felt domestic and right and terrifying. We need to talk about what happens next, Gorra said, sopping up egg with her bread. I know. Your neighbors will not stop with one warning. And if word gets back to my brother that I am here, he will come. Probably with his whole raiding party. Vincent nodded slowly. So we prepare. We fortify the property, set up watch rotations, make sure we can defend ourselves. You want to fight for this? Gorra looked surprised. I want to fight for you, for us. I spent 10 years fighting wars I did not believe in. I will gladly fight for something I do. Gorra reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers dwarfed his, but her touch was gentle. Then we fight together. They spent the next week turning the farm into something defensible. Vincent dug trenches along the property line and set up early warning bells. Gorra reinforced the barn and the house, adding heavy shutters and barring the doors. They practiced fighting together, learning each other's rhythms and strengths. Gorra was faster and stronger, but Vincent was tactical and patient. Together they made a formidable team. The trouble came on a hot afternoon 2 weeks later. Vincent was in the far pasture checking fences when he heard the warning bell. He ran back to the house, rifle in hand, and found Gorra standing at the gate. Coming up the road were 12 orcs, all armed and armored. At their head was a massive male orc with blood-red war paint and scars covering his arms. "That is Kargath," Gorra said quietly. "My brother." Vincent moved to stand beside her. "We face him together." Kargath stopped 10 feet from the gate. His eyes, the same amber color as Gorra's, fixed on his sister with pure rage. "You dare show your face, traitor? You stole my raid, shamed me before my warriors, and now I find you living with a human. Have you no honor at all?" Gorra's hand tightened on her sword, but her voice was steady. "I have more honor than you ever will, brother. You raid innocent people and call it justice. You steal and murder and claim it is our right as orcs. I could not be part of that anymore. So you betrayed your clan, your blood. For what? For this weak human? For what was right? And yes, for him. Vincent Vale is worth a dozen of you, Kargath. He has more courage and decency than anyone I have ever known." Kargath laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You are in love with a human. You are pathetic, but it does not matter. I am here to collect a debt. You took my cattle, I take your human's life." "That is fair." Vincent raised his rifle. "You are not taking anything. You think that weapon scares me, human. I have fought in 100 battles. I will tear you apart before you can pull the trigger." "Maybe," Vincent said calmly, "but I was a sergeant in the border wars. I have killed more enemies than you have scars. You want to fight, we fight, but you will not touch Gorra. That is not negotiable." Kargath's eyes narrowed. "She has made you brave or stupid. Same thing." He looked at Gorra. "I challenge you, sister. Single combat. You win, I leave and never return. I win, the human dies and you come back to the clan in chains. Those are my terms." "No," Vincent said immediately, but Gorra cut him off. "I accept." "Gorra, no, you do not have to do this." She turned to him, and the look in her eyes was fierce and loving all at once. "Yes, I do. This is between him and me. It always has been. Let me finish it." Vincent wanted to argue, wanted to fight beside her, but he understood. This was her battle, her choice. He nodded slowly. "You win. You hear me? You win and come back to me." Gorra kissed him hard and fast. "I will. I promise." She vaulted over the gate and drew her sword. Kargath grinned and pulled a massive battle axe from his back. The warriors formed a circle, giving them space. Vincent stood at the fence, rifle ready, trusting Gorra but prepared to intervene if things went wrong. The fight was brutal. Kargath was bigger and stronger, and his axe had incredible reach. But Gorra was faster, and she fought with a precision that came from years of disciplined training. They traded blows, metal ringing on metal, both of them drawing blood. Vincent's heart was in his throat the entire time. Gorra took a glancing blow to her shoulder that made Vincent flinch, but she used the momentum to spin inside Kargath's guard and drive her sword into his thigh. Kargath roared and backhanded her, sending her sprawling. He raised his axe for a killing blow. Vincent leveled his rifle, but Gorra was already moving. She rolled, grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it in Kargath's eyes. While he was blinded, she swept his legs, and when he fell she was on him, sword at his throat. "Yield," Gorra commanded. Kargath snarled, but he was beaten and they both knew it. "I yield." Gorra stood, breathing hard, blood running down her arm. "Take your warriors and go, Kargath. I am not your sister anymore. I am not part of your clan. If you come back here, if you threaten Vincent or his property again, I will kill you. That is not a threat. It is a promise." Kargath climbed to his feet, limping heavily. He looked at her with something that might have been respect or might have been hatred. "You were always the better fighter, Gorra. I just never wanted to admit it, but you have chosen your path. Live with the consequences." He signaled his warriors and they retreated back up the road. Vincent watched them until they were out of sight, then ran to Gorra. She was swaying, adrenaline fading and pain setting in. "I need to get you inside, tend those wounds. I am fine. It is just blood." "You are not fine. Let me help you." She leaned on him and let him guide her to the house. Inside, Vincent cleaned her wounds with steady hands, years of battlefield medicine coming back to him. The shoulder cut was deep but not life-threatening. He bandaged it carefully while Gorra sat still and quiet. "You scared me," Vincent said softly. "Watching you fight him, knowing I could not help, that was the worst thing I have felt since the war. I had to do it myself. I had to prove to him and to myself that I made the right choice." "And did you prove it to yourself?" Gorra looked at him, at this human man who had taken her in when she had nothing, who had defended her against his own people, who had stood beside her even when it cost him everything. "Yes, I chose right. I chose you." Vincent finished the bandage and kissed her forehead. "You should rest. I should help you with the cattle. The cattle can wait. You are hurt and you just fought your brother in single combat. Rest, that is an order." Gorra smiled. "You do not give me orders, I know. That is why I ask nicely." She laughed and let him help her to the bedroom. He settled her on the bed and pulled off her boots. She caught his hand before he could leave. "Stay, just for a little while." Vincent lay down beside her, careful of her wounds. Gorra curled against him, her head on his chest, and within minutes she was asleep. Vincent stayed awake, listening to her breathe, feeling the weight of her trust like a sacred thing. When she woke hours later, the sun was setting and Vincent had dinner ready. They ate together in comfortable silence, and then Gorra said, "What happens now? Your neighbors still hate me. My clan still considers me a traitor. We are alone against everyone." "We have each other," Vincent said. "That is not nothing. It is not enough. You need allies. You need people who will trade with you, help you when things go wrong. You cannot survive out here completely isolated." Vincent knew she was right. He had been thinking the same thing. Then we find people who will accept us, or we make them accept us. We live our lives, we run this farm, and we prove that what we have is real and good and worth protecting. You make it sound simple. It will not be simple. It will probably be the hardest thing either of us ever does. But I would rather fight for this for us than live an easy life without you. Gorra reached across the table and took both his hands. "In my clan, when two warriors want a bond, they perform a rite. They exchange blades and pledge to fight together until death. It is sacred, permanent. Is there something similar for humans?" Vincent's heart skipped. "Marriage. We call it marriage. You stand before witnesses and promise to love and honor each other for the rest of your lives. And if there are no witnesses who will accept us, then we make our own promises. We do not need anyone's permission to love each other." Gorra. She stood and walked around the table, pulling him up to face her. From her belt she drew a long knife, beautifully made with an orc rune carved in the hilt. "This was my mother's. It is the most valuable thing I own. I give it to you, Vincent Vale, and I pledge to fight beside you, to protect you, to stand with you against anything until my last breath." You are my heart, my home, my choice." Vincent's throat was tight. He went to his room and returned with his officer's saber from the war, the one thing he had kept from his military service. "This saw me through 10 years of combat. It kept me alive when nothing else could. I give it to you, Gorra, and I promise to love you, to honor you, to build a life with you no matter what the world throws at us. You are my future, my partner, my everything." They exchanged blades. Vincent took the knife and Gorra took the saber, and in that moment something shifted between them. It was not legal, not by human or orc standards, but it was real. They were bound now, by choice and love and the promises they made in Vincent's small farmhouse with no witnesses except the evening stars. Gorra kissed him, and it was different this time, deeper and more certain. Vincent pulled her close, careful of her healing wounds, and they stood there holding each other as the sun set and the first stars appeared. That night they made love for the first time, slow and tender and surprisingly sweet. Gorra was strong but gentle, and Vincent discovered that navigating the differences between them just made everything more intimate. They learned each other's bodies the way they had learned each other's fighting styles, with patience and care and growing wonder. Afterwards they lay tangled together, Gorra's head on Vincent's chest, his fingers tracing the scars on her arms. "I never thought I would have this," Gorra said quietly. "A partner, a home, someone who looks at me like I am precious. You are precious. You are everything. My whole life, I was told that love made you weak, that caring for someone gave them power over you, but this does not feel weak. This feels like the strongest thing I have ever done." Vincent kissed the top of her head. Being vulnerable with someone, trusting them completely, that takes more courage than any battle. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time in years neither of them had nightmares. The next few months were not easy, but they were good. Vincent and Gorra worked the farm together, falling into comfortable rhythms. She was up before dawn checking the herd while he made breakfast. They repaired fences and hauled water and planned for winter. In the evenings they cooked together, Gorra learning human recipes and Vincent attempting orc dishes with varying success. They talked and laughed and slowly built a life that felt more real than anything Vincent had known since before the war. The neighbors did not come around anymore. Vincent made his trips to town quick and efficient, buying supplies and leaving before anyone could start trouble. It was lonely, being shut out by the community, but Gorra made up for it. She was funny and smart and endlessly interesting. She taught him to track game and he taught her to read human writing. They sparred in the evenings, pushing each other to be better fighters. They made plans for expanding the herd, for building a bigger barn for the future. Word of their unusual relationship spread. Some travelers went out of their way to avoid Vincent's farm. Others, the outcasts and the curious, stopped by to see for themselves. A dwarf merchant named Rorick began trading with them, fascinated by the idea of a human and orc in love. An old widow from 3 valleys over sent them a wedding quilt with a note that said, "Love is rare. Protect it." These small kindnesses sustained them. Winter came hard that year. Snow piled deep and the cold was bitter. Vincent and Gorra spent long evenings by the fire, Gorra telling stories of orc legends and Vincent reading aloud from his small collection of books. They were snowed in for 2 weeks during the worst storm, and those weeks became some of Vincent's favorite memories. Just the two of them, warm and safe, the rest of the world locked out by snow and ice. It was during that storm that Gorra told him she was pregnant. Vincent dropped the book he was reading. "What?" Gorra's hand went to her stomach, protective and uncertain. "I am pregnant. I have been feeling strange for weeks, and this morning I was certain. I know this is unexpected. I know we did not plan this, but I wanted you to know." Vincent crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Unexpected, yes. Unwanted. Never. Gorra, this is wonderful. You are not afraid. Half-orc children, they are rare. I do not know what to expect. I do not know if human and orc bodies are even fully compatible for this. We will figure it out together. We always do. Gorra held him tight, and Vincent felt her shaking slightly. I am terrified. I am going to be a mother. I do not know how to be a mother. My own mother died when I was young. And I do not know how to be a father, but we will learn. Together. They stood there in front of the fire, holding each other, and Vincent felt the future solidifying around them. They were not just 2 people anymore. They were becoming a family. The rest of the winter passed in preparation. Gorra remained healthy and strong, though she tired more easily as the pregnancy progressed. Vincent read every book on childbirth he could find, knowing that orc pregnancies might be different but hoping the basics were the same. They prepared a room for the baby, converting Vincent's old storage area into a nursery. Gorra carved a cradle from oak wood, her hands steady and sure even as her belly grew. Spring came late but welcome. The snow melted and the cattle ventured out into the greening pastures. Gorra was huge now, her movements careful and deliberate. Vincent hovered, trying not to be overprotective but unable to help himself. She tolerated his worry with good humor, only occasionally telling him to stop acting like she was made of glass. The baby came on a warm afternoon in early spring. Gorra's labor was long and difficult, and there were hours when Vincent was certain he would lose her. But she was strong, stronger than he could ever be, and as the sun set she delivered a healthy baby girl. Vincent held his daughter for the first time and felt his entire world realign. She was perfect, tiny and wrinkled and perfect. Her skin was a soft green, lighter than Gorra's, and she had the tiniest tusks already visible. Her eyes, when they opened, were Vincent's blue-gray. She was a perfect blend of both of them, proof that 2 different worlds could create something beautiful. She is incredible, Vincent whispered, tears running down his face. Gorra, exhausted but glowing, reached out to touch their daughter's cheek. What should we name her? Vincent thought about the old widow who had sent them the quilt, about kindness in unexpected places, about new beginnings. Hope, let us name her Hope. Gorra smiled. Hope Vale, I like that. They brought Hope home to a farm that was finally, truly theirs. Vincent's farm, Gorra's farm, Hope's farm. Over the next months they settled into the chaos of new parenthood. Hope was a good baby, curious and alert. She had her mother's strength and her father's stubborn determination. Vincent had never been so exhausted or so happy. Word of Hope's birth spread. Some people were horrified, calling her an abomination, but others were curious. Rorik the dwarf came by with gifts, cooing over Hope like any proud uncle. The old widow sent more quilts and baby clothes. A young human woman from the next valley, married to an elf and similarly ostracized, came to visit and became a fast friend to both Gorra and Vincent. They were building something, slowly but surely. Not just a farm, but a community of people who believed that love mattered more than species or tradition. When Hope was 6 months old, Garrett came by. It was the first time Vincent had seen him since the confrontation. Garrett sat on his horse at the gate, looking uncomfortable. I heard you had a baby, Garrett said. We did. Her name is Hope. Can I see her? Vincent was surprised, but he went inside and came back with Hope in his arms. Garrett dismounted and approached slowly. He looked at Hope for a long moment, and Vincent saw something shift in his face. She is beautiful, Garrett said quietly. She looks happy, healthy. She is, we both are. Garrett met Vincent's eyes. I was wrong about Gorra, about all of it. I let fear make me cruel, and I am sorry. You were brave and I was a coward. I do not expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I was wrong." Vincent felt something old and painful loosen in his chest. "I do forgive you, and you are welcome here if you want to visit." Garrett nodded, eyes bright. "I would like that." He did not stay long that day, but he came back a week later and then again. Other neighbors began to follow his example, cautiously at first, then with growing acceptance. It was not universal. There were still people who hated and feared Gorra, who called Hope a monster. But there were more people who were willing to look past old prejudices and see a family that loved each other. By the time Hope was walking, Vincent and Gorra had built something remarkable. Their farm was thriving. They had friends, real friends, who accepted them. They had a daughter who was growing up knowing she was loved and wanted. It was not perfect. There were still hard days, still people who made things difficult, but they faced it all together. One evening, when Hope was 2 years old and chasing chickens around the yard, Gorra and Vincent sat on the porch watching her. Gorra leaned against Vincent's shoulder, content and relaxed. "You ever regret it?" Vincent asked. "Giving up your clan, your old life, everything?" Gorra was quiet for a moment, then she said, "Every choice has a cost. I lost my clan, my brother, my place in orc society, but I gained something infinitely more valuable. I gained you. I gained hope. I gained a life where I can be myself, where I am loved for who I am, not what I am. So no. I do not regret it, not for a single moment." Vincent kissed her temple. "I love you. I know I say it all the time, but I want you to know I mean it every time. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." "You are my heart," Gorra said simply. "You and Hope. Everything else is just details." Hope came running up then, demanding to be picked up, and Vincent scooped her into his lap. She giggled and grabbed his nose, babbling in the mixed language she was developing, part human words and part orc sounds. Gorra ruffled her hair and Hope turned to hug her mother, complete and perfect in her love. They sat there as the sun set, the three of them together, and Vincent knew with absolute certainty that this was enough. This was everything. The farm, his wife, his daughter, the life they had built against all odds. He had gone to war looking for purpose and found only death. He had come to the frontier looking for peace and found loneliness. But then Gorra had walked into his life, returning his cattle and his hope all at once, and everything had changed. She had brought back more than his stolen herd that day. She had brought back his future, his heart, his reason for waking up in the morning. And in return, he had given her a home, a family, a place where she belonged. They had saved each other in all the ways that mattered. As the stars came out and Hope fell asleep in his arms, Vincent looked at Gorra and saw his entire world reflected in her amber eyes. They had fought for this. They had bled for this. And they would keep fighting, keep building, keep loving for as long as they both drew breath. Because some things were worth any cost. Some things were worth standing against the whole world. And the love between a scarred human farmer and a brave orc warrior was absolutely one of those things. The next morning dawned bright and clear, and Vincent woke to find Gorra already up and working despite his protests that she should rest more. She was stubborn that way, always had been, and he loved that about her. Hope toddled after her mother, trying to help with chores in the way that 2-year-olds do, which mostly meant getting in the way and asking endless questions. Vincent made breakfast, something he had become quite good at over the years. As they sat together eating, Hope in her high chair making a spectacular mess, there was a knock at the door. Vincent and Gorra exchanged glances. Visitors were more common now than they had been, but unexpected guests still put them both on edge. Vincent opened the door to find Rorik the dwarf merchant, his wagon loaded with goods. But he was not alone. Behind him stood 3 orcs, 2 males and a female, all young and looking nervous. Rorik, Vincent said cautiously. This is unexpected. The dwarf grinned, his beard braided with silver beads. Morning, Vincent. I have brought some folks who wanted to meet you and Gorra, or rather they wanted to see if the stories were true. Gorra appeared at Vincent's shoulder, hope on her hip. When she saw the orcs, her whole body went tense. Who are you? The female orc stepped forward. She was young, maybe 19 or 20, with scars on her arms and determination in her eyes. My name is Thraka. These are my companions, Morgul and Draz. We heard that there was an orc living in peace with a human, that they had a child together. We did not believe it. But if it is true, if you have found a way to live outside the clans, we want to learn how. We want to live differently too. Gorra stared at them. You left your clan, we did, Morgul said. He was younger than Thraka, barely more than a boy. Our clan leader wanted us to raid a human village. There were children there. We could not do it, so we left. And now you have nowhere to go, Gorra said slowly. We heard stories about you, Thraka said. About how you fought your brother for what was right, how you chose honor over clan. You are a legend among the younger orcs. Some call you a traitor, but others call you brave. We want to be brave too. Vincent felt Gorra's hand find his, squeezing tight. He squeezed back, supporting whatever decision she made. Gorra looked at these three young orcs, at their hopeful, desperate faces, and saw herself 3 years ago, lost and alone and trying to do the right thing in a world that punished honor. She looked at Vincent, at hope, at the life they had built together. It will not be easy, Gorra said finally. Humans will fear you, orcs will shun you. You will have to work harder than you ever have to prove yourselves. But if you are willing to do that, if you are committed to building something better, then yes, we can help you. Thraka's face lit up. Thank you, you will not regret this. I already regret it a little, Gorra said dryly, but she was smiling. Come on. Let us find you a place to set up camp and start figuring out what comes next. Over the following weeks, Vincent and Gorra helped Thraka, Morgul, and Draz establish themselves on unclaimed land a few miles away. They taught them about farming, about trade with humans, about how to navigate a world that was not designed for orcs who wanted peace. It was exhausting work, but it was also hopeful. They were not alone anymore. They were building something bigger than just their own family. They were building a future where maybe, just maybe, humans and orcs could live together. More orcs came. Not many, but enough. Young ones mostly, idealistic and brave, willing to risk everything for a chance at a different life. They formed a small community on the frontier, a place where species did not matter as much as character. It was fragile and constantly tested, but it grew. Vincent's farm became a gathering place. On summer evenings, humans and orcs would come together for meals, sharing food and stories. Children, both human and orc, and the handful of half-breeds like Hope, played together without the old hatreds. It was not perfect. There were arguments and misunderstandings and more than a few fights. But they were trying, all of them, to build something better than what they had been given. One afternoon, nearly a year after Thraka and the others had arrived, Vincent and Gorra stood on their porch watching Hope play with Thraka's nephew, a full-blooded orc boy named Grak, who was a few months younger than Hope. The two children were racing around the yard, laughing and shouting in their mixed language. You think they will have it easier? Gorra asked. The next generation, Vincent considered. Maybe. At least they will grow up seeing that different does not have to mean enemy. That is something. It is everything, Gorra corrected. She turned to look at him, and Vincent was struck again by how beautiful she was. Not in spite of her green skin and tusks, but because of them, because they were part of who she was. You gave me that, Vincent. You gave me a world where my daughter can grow up without having to choose between her heritage and her future. We gave that to her, together. Gorra smiled and pulled him close, kissing him softly. Together. Always. That night, after Hope was asleep and the evening chores were done, Vincent and Gorra lay in their bed talking about plans for the next season. They wanted to expand the farm, bring in more cattle, maybe plant an orchard. Thraka had expressed interest in learning beekeeping. Morgul was turning out to be an excellent blacksmith. The community was growing, evolving, becoming something neither humans nor orcs had seen before. "Sometimes I still cannot believe this is real," Vincent said. "That you are real, that we built all of this from nothing." "Not from nothing," Gorra said. "From 40 head of stolen cattle and one very stubborn human who refused to see me as a monster," Vincent laughed. "Best decision I ever made not shooting you that first day." "Second best," Gorra corrected. "The best was asking me to stay." "Fair point." They fell asleep holding each other, and Vincent's dreams were peaceful and full of promise. The nightmares from the war still came sometimes, but less frequently now. He had found something worth living for, something worth fighting for, something that made all the old pain feel distant and manageable. Seasons passed. Hope grew from a toddler to a young girl, bright and curious and loved by everyone in the community. More children came, both full-blooded orc and human and mixed. The little frontier settlement became a village, then a small town. They built a school where human and orc children learned together. They established trade routes with other communities, slowly breaking down the old barriers. It was not quick and it was not easy, but change rarely was. Vincent's hair started to gray at the temples. Gorra developed new scars from the hard work of building a community. But they grew old together, watching their daughter grow up, watching the world slowly shift toward something better. They added 2 more children to their family, a boy they named Thomas, and another girl they named Mira. Both were healthy and strong and perfect, just like their older sister. On the 10th anniversary of the day Gorra had brought Vincent's cattle back, the community threw a celebration. It had become a sort of founding day for them, the moment when everything changed. There was food and music and dancing. Humans and orcs celebrated together, and for that one perfect evening, all the old hatred seemed very far away. Vincent stood with Gorra, watching the festivities. Hope was 15 now, already taller than Vincent and with her mother's strength. She was dancing with Grak, the 2 of them laughing and happy. Thomas and Mira were racing around with other children, their laughter bright and pure. "We did it," Vincent said softly. "We actually did it." Gorra leaned her head on his shoulder. "You sound surprised." "I am. Every day I wake up and I am surprised that this worked, that we made it work." "That is because you still think like a human, all doubt and worry. Orcs, we choose something and we fight for it until we win or die." There was no other option except making this work. Vincent turned to face her, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you. I have loved you since the day you handed me back my cattle and turned my entire world upside down. And I will love you until my last breath." Gorra's eyes shimmered with emotion. "You are my heart. You gave me a home when I had none. You gave me a family when I was alone. You gave me hope when I had given up. I would fight the whole world for you, Vincent Vale, and count it a privilege." They kissed there in the middle of the celebration, and around them, their community cheered. It had been a long, hard road from that morning when Gorra had appeared with 40 head of cattle, but they had walked it together. They had faced prejudice and violence and fear, and they had overcome it all through stubbornness and love, and the absolute refusal to give up on each other. As the evening wore on and the stars came out, Vincent held his wife close and looked around at everything they had built. A thriving farm. A loving family. A community that proved different peoples could live together in peace. It was more than he had ever dreamed possible on that desperate morning when he had thought he lost everything. But he had not lost everything. He had gained the world. And it had all started with one brave orc woman who chose to do the right thing, even when it cost her everything she had ever known. She had brought back his stolen cattle, and in doing so, she had brought back his stolen future. Vincent looked at Gorra, at this incredible woman who had become his wife, his partner, the mother of his children, and he felt gratitude so profound, it was almost painful. They had been given a chance, a moment where two worlds collided, and instead of destroying each other, they created something new, something beautiful, something worth celebrating. The night stretched on, full of music and laughter and hope. And in the morning, when the celebration was over and life returned to normal, Vincent and Gorra would wake up in their bed in their home, surrounded by the family and community they had built, and they would face another day together, just as they had faced every day for the past 10 years. Just as they would face every day for however many years they had left. Because that was what love was. It was not one grand gesture or one perfect moment. It was 1,000 small choices, made over and over, to stand beside someone even when the world told you to walk away. It was 40 head of cattle returned when they should have been lost. It was a handshake offered when a rifle should have been raised. It was choosing hope over fear every single day until hope became reality. And as Vincent held Gorra and watched their children dance beneath the stars, he knew with absolute certainty that every struggle, every sacrifice, every moment of fear and doubt had been worth it. They had found each other against all odds, and together they had built a love that would echo through generations. She had brought back his stolen cattle single-handed. But more than that, she had brought back his faith in the future, his capacity to love, his reason to keep fighting. And in return, he had given her a home, a family, and proof that even in a world full of hatred and division, love could still win. It was enough. It was everything, and it was theirs.